2023 series called Adjusting to Change, and that there's a cluster here that formed. We started out with Mastering Our Goals as our 7th webinar, and then I realized that we need to back up and do another webinar, clarify and investigate, that what our needs and wants are in order for us to become a little more clear about what our goals are. So in our goals webinar, it turned out that many of you don't even know fully what your goals are. And there's multiple reasons for that. We will talk about this today. We'll investigate this from different perspectives. One of the main foundations, or I think I called it pillars, of knowing your goals is to first master your needs and wants. Does anybody have a common sense answer for us why that is the case? Why do we first need to know what we need and what we want before we can determine what our goal is? Don't think too deep. It's very common sense.
I suppose so you can feel safe having your needs so that you can go for what you want.
Yeah.
First, so a foundation, basically.
It's really common sense, okay? But it is something that we sometimes lose out of sight. We sometimes lose that out of sight. And there's multiple reasons for that. So don't feel bad if you discovered this, that there's gaps there, in you being able to say out loud what your goal is. I mean, those of you who are here today, not all of you have been live in the other ones, but can you spontaneously say what your goals are right now in 1 or 2 sentences?
I can't. I can come up with jumbled stuff, but nothing as concise as how I'd want it to be. So I just wanted to put that in.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. That's very honest and probably very much how many of us feel. Anybody here who can say this in 1 or 2 sentences? I mean, jumbled, fine, but at least to the point. What your goals in life are. Yeah, so this is not unusual, guys, unless you go to like let's say a week training course, okay, where it's all about that. You will probably have a hard time defining your goals. And yet, if you think about it, most of the choices that you make in life have to do with your goals, or better say, should have to do with your goals, shouldn't they? But before, like Sean said, before you can think about, how to reach your goals and what tools to try and all, the different ways that you could get there, you first need to know what your needs and wants are. Now, can you spontaneously answer what are your needs and what are your wants? What you personally need in order to fill in the blank. So this is a very important exercise, okay? Because you can see here now, even by the sentence structure, that the needs and the wants lead to the goal. Okay? Let's just go through this real quick. What's the difference between a need and a want? Anybody?
I guess the wants is sort of what you might desire, but the need is sort of something that you have to have.
Good. All
Sort
right.
of way.
Yeah, we can work with that. A need is more of a non-negotiable. Whereas a want is more like would be nice if, right? And the ones can be very strong, so they can turn into drives, they can turn into motivation, they can, you know, turn into goals, you know, but they do need to match up with the needs. Anybody ever been in a life situation where, you know, you thought you needed something so bad and you focused everything on what you thought you needed, and then you realized that it wasn't even what you wanted? Anybody ever had that?
Yeah, I've had that in a relationship where I
Mm-hmm.
really thought I kind of needed and wanted that relationship, but
Or that person, right? It could only go with
that
this person. You could only get it with
yeah,
this person. Mm-hmm.
that's right. There was a time in my life that I thought that, definitely. Yeah.
To
So
find out what did you find out in a nutshell?
weren't really aligned, like actually that our values and things weren't really aligned. But I was overlooking my needs to
Okay,
please the other person because I thought that's what I wanted. Yeah.
wonderful. Yeah, so this you already discovered like one of the big things that we sometimes oversee. We can get so focused on somebody else's needs, and obviously when
Yeah.
we are in relationships, and this can also apply to work relationships or any kind of relationships really, that have that sort of narcissistic imbalance, right? Where the other person is really only interested in their needs. Yeah, when there's basically the lack of mutuality, then it's very easy to get pulled into that, where we get so distracted by somebody else's needs that we forget about our own. Yeah, this is one of the hallmarks, yeah, one of the main traits of codependency. That is what codependency is. So we got that one down. So there sometimes can be an overlay. Somebody else's needs can sort of overshadow or take priority over our own needs. And that can then lead sort of like a cascade, you know, to making choices that lead away from what we need and then ultimately also what we want. And the process of realizing this, Diana, since I have you here,
Yeah.
is quite a difficult process, isn't it? Like this moment where we have to like step back and say, wait, this isn't actually.
It was a process. It's not something that happened overnight by any means, not in that situation.
Yes. Do you, and we want to investigate here, what is holding us back? Yeah. So do you remember why it, let me just say it in plain English, took so long? In hindsight, we can see this, right? In hindsight, we can see that it took maybe longer than it should have.
Oh, yeah, well, was the fantasy relationship for me the soulmate. So I was sure that we were meant to be together.
All right. And
And
this
that,
is,
and he would come
yes.
around, you know, he would change, you know, I didn't have to. Well, you know what I mean? Like it
Well,
was
I
more
mean,
of a,
it's,
he would
you
see
know,
the light.
I appreciate your honesty, but sometimes it really isn't all about us, you know. Sometimes it really is about the other person changing. Sometimes it is that we don't want to accept the way people are,
Exactly.
you know,
Yeah.
and we resist that. You nailed it when you said it was the fantasy of it. You like the idea of that relationship or of you being with this person and the way
Oh,
you saw this person. You
yeah.
like that
Yeah.
more than what you saw in reality, how it actually was.
Exactly. And I think, yeah, I mean, eventually you've got, I don't know what the process is, but, you know, it got to the point that it was just like, I can't do this anymore, you know?
Yeah, so I
And,
mean,
and I
this is
saw
the point where we
actually,
falter, right? Yeah, this is the point where we falter, right? When we really can't take it anymore because it's jeopardizing, in some
yeah, and I
cases, even our
saw,
own survival. But it takes a long time to get there.
yeah,
Now,
it
in
can
your
do.
case, how long did it take you?
Years.
There's no judgment.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, years and years. The person disappeared, came back again. I thought, wow, when he came back, I must have been right. It confirmed it for me. He came back after a number of years. But once again, it didn't work out. Yeah, many years, Jona, many
Many
years.
years.
Wasted a long
Okay.
time. Yeah,
Okay. Well,
decade.
we're gonna look at the karmic component of things like this, not just relationships. This can also happen with jobs and lots of other things, houses, you know, and things like that. But I just wanted everybody here to have a feel that they're not, you know, for the fact that they're not alone with having sort of this hindsight realization that they, you know, that they really fell in love with this idea or this fantasy of something, and that it takes a long time to see through that. Yeah. And again, there are many different factors that play into this, why that is the case. All right. But wouldn't it be nice if we could, you know, see this quicker? If we could be more concise in not only determining what our own values and needs and wants are, but also whether or not the other person or the job or the place where we live, etc., serves that goal, right? There are two components to this. There's one is like knowing what you want, and then the other one is, well, does what I do or what I signed up for actually match up with this? Can you guys follow me here? Yeah. And that has to do with will. So today's topic is will. Yeah, you probably often heard this in conjunction with willpower. But I want you to look at will more as the energy that it takes to make choices based on where you want to go. The energy it takes to make choices according to where you want to go. Anybody ever been in a situation where you, well, let's say you have a conversation with someone, something tricky that needs to be resolved, and you have your thoughts beforehand, and you say to yourself, well, I'm not going to say this. All right. I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to say this. And I want this conversation to go there. And 5 seconds into the conversation, you say exactly the things that you didn't want to say. Anybody ever had that situation? Anybody had that situation where you swore to yourself you're not going to say this or not going to go there or not going to falter, like salary negotiations or I don't know, disputes with neighbors or you know, even, you know, simple things in relationships where you swear to yourself that you're not going to go there or that you're not going to like bend to it.
I
And then you
have.
end up doing it anyway.
I have. And it
More,
just
would you
feels.
say more often than not? Like, does this happen
Um,
frequently, or is this only, was this like only like an occasional?
in the past, it used to happen all the time, and I feel that was me just compensating. But now it's actually become more painful. And what ends up happening is that I get hooked back into something again that I promised I wouldn't do it again. And that's because the fear comes up of what's next or what am
Mhm.
I doing that's not right or wrong. And I think it's just
Yeah,
head stuff for me.
fear is always, I mean, that's easy to identify, right? The fear of like confrontation or the fear of what would happen if we said no or something like. So when it comes to saying no, I think we're all really familiar with this, that there's a little bit of a resistance to with that, and most of that is fear based. But there's other situations in life. For example, the gym membership. Anybody ever had a gym membership and end up not going, or not as often as you wanted to, or started a diet and it only went well for like maybe 3-4 weeks and then you didn't do it? Or meditating, for that matter, spiritual routine, or quitting drinking alcohol or smoking pot or things like that, things that you have, or quitting to eating chocolate, or whatever you identify as something that is not conducive for you, that does not lead you to where you want to go. Raise your hand if you're very familiar with that kind of scenario. Yes. So I guess that's yes, Diana, did you want to share?
Oh, I was just, I'm not sure if that's the hand, but
Yes.
yeah, no, definitely can relate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this something that you would say that happens more often than not in your life?
Well, the chocolate's a big one for me, that's for sure.
Okay.
I'm
That
always
was
picking up chocolate, but it never goes anywhere.
there was no pun intended. I know this about you personally, Diana.
Yeah,
So I thought, oh no,
yeah,
well, I didn't mean necessarily
throw
you.
that in. Yeah, yeah, I'm sure there's a few others as well. I've definitely started many diets, work for a while, and then, goes by the wayside.
Okay, so what do you think is responsible for this, everybody? I mean, this is really what we're talking about here. Yeah, we have an intention, we have a goal, we have a motivation, but then somehow the execution, the following through on that doesn't quite work out well.
No, I think sometimes life happens. Like if there's changes in your life, like, maybe getting married and then there's two of you and eating patterns change, or I mean, I don't know, your husband's having something and says, oh, well, you want a taste of this, I've done that with ice cream the next minute,
Okay, hang on. So I heard you say, yes, you're absolutely right. So I heard you say multiple things. Distractions.
Oh, well, there can be different things.
Temptations.
Yeah, yeah, temptation. Yeah.
And sort of compelling or compelling visualizations.
The other thing with me is I've been going to pursue something, and then there's things like, as you know, with my mother, something will happen, she has a fall, and then I find that I'm swept up in all of that drama and taking care of her needs, and then, what I was intending to do has gone by the wayside.
Okay, so that's a particular kind of distraction. It's like when somebody else's drama comes in. And obviously, when it is, a partner or child or, a parent that you're a caretaker for, then obviously you give that a certain meaning, you give that a certain priority that allows that, right?
Yeah,
So
but it's interesting because, as you know, for my sister is completely the opposite. Things can happen and you won't even see her. So,
all right.
It's like it's not the same for everybody necessarily,
No, I mean, this has a lot to do with the quality of relationship that someone has. If you compare, like the feeling that you have, this has to do with the feeling, there's a certain level of responsibility and commitment that you feel toward your mother, and the same could be said about relationships or children, for example. Yeah, so I don't have a mother that I take care of, but I have children that I take care of. And I know exactly what you're talking about. It's when something else sort of barges in, these curveballs, right? Where unexpected things happen and you have to adjust real quick. This is it's the category of distraction. Yeah, because it has the power to temporarily distract you from what you were doing. It's neither good nor bad, I mean, some distractions can actually be good for us, but you're talking about a particular kind of distraction because there is a feeling attached to that, and that feeling, when you have this responsibility for an elderly parent or for a child, then that does have priority in your life. Yeah. So
Mm.
that makes it priority. What most of us not aware of is that we're actually making a choice in that moment. Yeah. Even with small
Yeah.
distractions, we're making choices, but they're mostly unconscious. When it comes to prioritizing, the people that we feel responsible for, yeah, this is a
Mm.
choice. This is a choice. We're making this choice. And now you're comparing yourself with your sister. And the simple answer is it's like your sister just doesn't make the same choices as you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe that has to do with the feeling that she has to with your mom. Maybe she just doesn't feel as responsible as you do. Maybe she's just
Oh,
lazy because she knows that you will take care of. I mean, we all know that as
oh,
well, you know.
yeah, she's in a different state, which is not easy. But I mean, honestly, sometimes I think I was the one in a different state.
Hmm.
Yeah, to be quite
So they
honest,
can,
I think, oh,
without judging it, it's difficult
yeah,
to compare. Then I would
yeah,
say, especially when it comes to this investigation here, where you really want to find out what is holding you back from reaching your goals. Yeah, what is making it hard for you to actually follow your goals and follow through. Never compare with others. Do you know
no,
why? Because other people have different values, different motivation.
yeah,
Everything's different. You can never assume that it's the same for somebody else, and that's how it's not comparable. Yeah.
yeah,
There's like, so there may be exceptions to that, like say when it comes to like athletic successes. Yeah, like let's say you're in a team. Yeah, you play football, or you're some kind of team athlete. Okay, and the outspoken goal of the team is obviously to win. You know, that's there's no question about that. Yeah.
yeah,
And in those cases, you can compare because all players, let's take football, 11 players, they had to have the same goal in order to be in the same team. And it's clear there is no other goal. So the goal is set, and you can only sign up for it if you have that goal. If you don't have that goal, you shouldn't be signing up. So there are some
yeah,
situations, some things, some commitments, or some goals that are preset. But those are choices too. Nobody forces you to be part of a football team. That's your choice. But if you do, and especially when it's team um, athletics, okay, then there is an obligation, to fulfill those team set goals. Yeah. But when it comes to our life, it's not that easy because there's a lot more that flows into us deciding, you know, whom we are playing with as a team. Yeah, we can choose that and what goal we want. So in love integrity in our relationship course, for example, we found out that, yeah, well, it's actually the other way around. We have a tendency to come together and stay together with the people who have the same goals as we do. But
yeah,
they too have a choice, to they have the right to change their mind. They can change their goals. They can change, their outlook on the future and what they want to go to. So other than, these team things, or sometimes maybe at work as well, goals aren't set and everybody has the right to change.
yeah,
But so do we. This was something that we worked through a couple of weeks ago here in the beginning of July, where I kept sending out the message, guys, you have the right to change your mind. you know, don't be afraid of that. Yeah. Even though it means maybe that a prior commitment that you've made, has to be renegotiated or has to be nullified. So everybody has that freedom to choose what goal they want to go for. It's important to establish here. So we now know that everybody has different needs. Everybody has different wants. Everybody has different goals. Everybody has different ideas about how to reach those goals, and everybody has the right to change. That makes it a pretty complex problem, doesn't it? It means that if everything on the outside can change, if everybody can, change their commitments and change their ideas, the way they see the future and how they want to get there, well, that means we cannot really rely on the outside, can we now? It is therefore even more important that we have this clarity within what it is that we want. Not even mentioning the strength and the power to communicate that to others. But just from a pure sort of, I almost want to say mathematical standpoint, from a logical standpoint, if all factors on the outside can constantly change, what is the only factor that you can control? That's yourself, right? It's your own actions, your own choices. So in the bigger scope of things, it's important now to recognize that us being aware of what choices we are making is one of the biggest contributors to whether or not we are reaching our goals. That is a fact. It is in us. And the problem with not having goals altogether and just sort of floating around and letting ourselves get distracted or tempted or scared by the things that happen on the outside or by the uncertainty of things can lead to us, well, let me just sort of say it in a simple way, never reaching any goals. Can you see this more clearly now? It's almost like you have to put your stakes in. You have to put, that's how I used to call it, your order form in. Do you guys all know what I mean with order form? Yeah. Like in a metaphorical sense. Let's take Amazon. If you want to order something there, you're going to have to determine how much you want, what color, what size, what price, where to deliver to, how to pay to. Those are all choices that you're making. And if you're not making these choices, entirely, and you forget one thing, what happens with your order?
It can't get to you.
It can't
just
get to
can't
you.
get to you.
Yeah. Well, the software prevents that from happening, right? You can't even order it. Yeah. And the universe kind of works that way too. So if you look at it from a perspective of relationship, then you can clearly say, well, if you never express your needs, your wants, and your goals, well, how is your partner supposed to know that? Through mind reading? If you never make sure that your choices align with what you say your wants, your needs, your goals are, what does that do? If your choices don't match up with your goals.
I don't know about everyone else, but it kind of starts to hurt me.
Yeah. First, it gets a little frustrating, and then it gets painful, right?
Yep.
So that's the way That's a way of the universe telling you that something ain't matching up and something isn't working right here. What happens if your choices, yeah, and with it all the actions that come with this and so forth, the attitude, the motivation, and all that, it's just right, and it aligns perfectly to not just what you communicate to the outside, but also to yourself. Like you fully aligned with all the things that you do. You make mistakes here and there, that's fine, and you correct them. But the opposite of getting into that sort of rut, into that frustration, into that stuckness, what does the opposite feel like? Anybody ever had that? When everything just lines up perfectly. It's like an all
I
you can
have.
eat buffet. All you can eat. You know, all you gotta do is choose what you want. Can you describe it?
It just feels like you're on a roll. I mean, it just feels like I'm flowing with myself and the outside, nothing in particular, but my day just, I don't know, it's just a bit jolly, like a bit of a skip here and maybe a bit of a stone to just move around, but it's not forced. I don't have to force anything.
Yeah.
It's just happening,
It feels
you
easy.
know?
It feels
Yeah.
easy. Now, that said, I'm not going to try to give you the impression that, if you just follow these steps, then you can manifest anything you want in life, because that's also not entirely true. Okay. And that has to do with karma. So karma is a bigger order form. Yeah, that's the oval order form that you filled out before you came here. Okay. So that gets a little more complicated when it comes to investigating the spiritual aspects of your goals. All right. Then you enter another dimension of yourself, namely, well, what is the nature and quality of my goals? So let me give you an example. You can say, well, my goal in life is just to, have a roof over my head and have enough to eat. Primal, very foundational, fundamental survival needs. Okay? Is that a good goal?
Very primitive.
Yeah, but it's a good
It's not,
goal, right? I mean,
yeah,
there's nothing you can say against that, because everybody kind of has to have that. That's a minimum. That's a minimum. Yeah. But
yeah.
not enough. Right? So then comes the next level goal. Oh, all I want is to feel like I belong to something. I want to have, I want to get married, want to have kids, and want to feel like part of a community, and that's what I want in life. Is there anything wrong with that goal?
No.
Not really, right? It's still, I mean, primitive is a bit judgmental, but it's still kind of very, like at the lower level of what our potential is. But it is valid. It's a valid need. Okay. Yeah, to wanting to, belong somewhere, to not be alone. I was going to show you guys the hierarchy of needs here, but um, I don't have that slide in this presentation, which is fine, because that's something that you can look up in the needs and wants. There's nothing wrong with just wanting to belong and just not wanting to feel alone. But is that enough?
Jona, do you think though, like I'm thinking, see if you don't have the roof over your head, or you don't have it, it's going to be hard to move past those things until you have them.
So here, this is why it's called the hierarchy of needs. Okay, so they build upon another. Yeah,
So
you
it's
have to
not
have
that there's anything wrong. It's only that
no,
once you have something, then you can focus on something
exactly.
more. That's why I'm looking at
Yes, and that's the way to look at it. This is how psychology looks at things. So you first have to have a roof over your head, you know, to even think about something like belonging. Yeah. And then after belonging comes achievement or esteem. You know, you want to be somebody, you want to, you know, do something with your life. You want to have an education, you want to have a job, you want to have something like that, that, you know, gives you a place in society. That's the third level of fundamental needs. Building on top of the first two. Yeah, roof over your head, food, basic belonging, then comes esteem. Nothing wrong with that, right? And what comes after that? What if that's not enough for you? What if that is not your full potential, to just have a job, a 9 to 5, you know, go to work every day, you know, come home to your little house with the picket fence and, you know, maybe a partner that is there at the same time, and you know, and that's what you do all your life. Do you know anybody whom that is not enough for?
it. Yeah.
Yeah, this is most people out there. Okay, let's just have a look at this here. But this is from psychology, guys. This is very fundamental psychology. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Okay, so at the very bottom, yeah, of our needs is the biological and physiological needs: food, shelter, warmth. Then safety and control, which we feel through, you know, like having some kind of stability in life. Then the belongingness. This is a very fundamental kind of love. It's not the kind of like not like true love, not like a deep connection. It's just like, you know, something that you would experience, you know, living in an extended family or in a tribe or in a little village, and everybody kind of sort of, you know, knows that they belong together and show each other affection. Then comes esteem and education. That has to do with status. So a lot of people get stuck right here, yeah, and wonder why they're not happy, because they still have a lot more potential. Most people out there right now are really longing for this here, for deeper connection. But deeper connection in true relation, true relating. Yeah. And this requires a certain level of self-awareness, yeah, and self-reflection. And you have to give it meaning, you know, is what I am doing here, yeah, does this even have meaning for me? So when we talked earlier, Diana, we talked about values. Yeah, so values have a lot to do with that. Is this enough for me to have this kind of relationship where we just sort of, you know, see each other, you know, for a few hours a day, and you know, and maybe have some kind of physical connection? Yeah, is this enough for me?
Yeah.
Each of these hierarchical needs, guys, also come with a different quality of needs. Do you see what I'm saying? Yes. So you're absolutely right when it comes to like what needs to be there first. Yes, that's why it's a pyramid. Okay, we need to have this first. Yeah. And here on the left, you can see very beautifully what the consequences are if you don't have it. Okay, if you don't have it, if you don't have food, shelter, then your life is at risk. Physical health issues, yeah, emotional, mental issues, yeah, severe emotional, mental is trauma, addiction. Yeah, these correlate with these levels when those needs aren't met. And sometimes, and this is the interesting part, we skip needs. Yeah, so let's enter the world here of, you know, a little more sophisticated needs, and this has to do with aesthetics and form. Yeah, we want to feel in a certain way. We want to feel alive. We want to be expressive. We want to, you know, have beauty in our life. It's not just enough to have 4 walls and a couch and a TV. You know, we want some, you know, some warmth in there. Yeah, we want to feel that. Yeah, we want something that truly reflects who we are. Yeah. And then comes the impulse for self-actualization, you know, to make it more congruent. Does this even match up with me? You know, those of us who have a good feel for like decoration and stuff like that, you may have noticed that after a few years, or maybe you know, a decade or so, you look at your furniture, or you look at the colors that you have in your house, and you realize that isn't even me anymore. I don't even like that anymore. Anybody ever had that? Yeah.
Yep.
Right? And then you suddenly feel that urge to like change it all because it's no longer congruent. And we don't really need to like you know, ponder about why that is. You know, it's just, you know, part of a natural sort of evolution. You know, we evolve. Yeah. It gets interesting with fashion and stuff because fashion seems to come and go in cycles. You know, and a lot of people find themselves, especially if they're a little older, suddenly liking the things that they liked when they were 20 or 30, you know, and they despised them, you know, for the last 20 years. But suddenly they like them again. Yeah, so I noticed this with colors. I'm wearing colors right now that I would have not even touched with tongs, okay, the last 20 years. Okay, and I'm wearing them again. Those are the same colors I wore in the 80s. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, so there are some things that have to do with fashion. They're not necessarily aligned with self-actualization. Okay, but then there's some colors that I always liked. They never changed. Yeah, like in my personal case, I have clothes that more than half of the clothes in my closet are clothes that are 30 years old or 40, like literally. Yeah, so there's some core taste that I have that never really changed. And that's more of the like the true me, if you will. And then I have a certain percentage that is a little more adjusted to like, you know, a certain fashion, certain trends and stuff like that. The point here being that, you know, congruence, you know, again, is also something that has to do with us being aware of what we like. This is no longer the liking based on sympathy and antipathy. Sympathy and antipathy are sort of instinctual in a way. You know, that's down here. That's here on this level. You know, we feel sympathetic to somebody, you know, who, I say this with the kids all the time, you know, like who like the same things that we do. And that's the level of like, say, parties, like not birthday parties, but like political parties, even cults. They bond here on a very fundamental sort of level of you know, we are together, but there is no actual deeper connection between the people. It's just like a form of feeling safe together. Yeah, so here on the level of self-actualization, we start asking ourselves the question, if, you know, the relationships that we're in, and if the jobs that we're doing, and if, you know, the things that we're choosing in our life, if they're even fulfilling, yeah, if they even have meaning to us. Yeah, and this is also the first time when something like integrity, like something that is internal, that informs us about whether it's true to us or not, comes up in us. On these levels down here, integrity does not play a role. Yeah, on the level of aesthetics and form, integrity is not yet a priority. And then comes an even higher potential, yeah, that we all have, and that has to do with seeing the greater purpose of things, yeah, wanting to be of service, no longer just seeing our own needs, yeah, but caring for something outside of ourselves, caring for the greater whole, prioritizing the needs of many, not just a partner or a mom or kid or whatever, but, you know, like what does the world need, or my village, or, you know, what can I do to contribute, yeah, to lift the energy of, you know, the bigger unit that I see myself in. And then the highest level of need here, you know, when it's not really felt as a need anymore. It's really just a natural progression. yeah, is selflessness. Yeah, is when we realize that it's not really about us as individual. Yeah, it's also not just about the whole. There is an even bigger purpose behind all this, and that's why you see the word the stewardship here. You know, is you realize that you are the carrier of something. Yeah? You carry something, that you are part of the whole, but also that the whole is in you. And then what we would call a worldly needs, yeah, worldly needs then become, you know, I don't even want to say secondary, like tertiary. You know, you don't have thoughts about these things anymore because they're already fulfilled. So this is the potential that we have as humans as we are growing beyond, you know, the lower needs into the higher needs. And each of these different well, octaves, if you will, yeah, of these different realms, okay, they come with a different set of struggles, with a different set of challenges, yeah, and, you know, temptations and distractions. And this is basic psychology here, and the Sacred Self-Healing course, for example, covers this in length. It's more important that we understand, you know, that if we are dealing with issues here on this level, this level, this level, this level, all right, that we haven't even reached the level of truth yet. Truth in the sense of, you know, being fully self-aware and being able to determine meaning. So if we are unable to determine meaning of something, well, what are we doing then? Well, in psychology, we talk about the lower self. We talk about the stuff that is biologically, yeah, via our instincts, via our pre-programming and conditioning, you know, put into us to ensure our survival, to ensure that we, well, you know, go through the life cycle. And more or less, I often call this the body mind, you know, it's this unconscious, you know, just executing of being alive. It's an unconscious form. So the lower self is not a bad self or a mean self or anything. It is an unconscious self. This unconscious self, which we all have, yeah, so throughout our childhood, we run through this unconscious self and become gradually more and more conscious, yeah, can still survive, can still have some level of safety and belonging, yeah, and even some form of esteem in life, yeah, but it's nowhere near, yeah, following sort of this karmic potential that we have. And a lot of times, you know, this pain or this frustration, Sean, that you mentioned, yeah, this kind of ping, this inner urge, or this you know, this impulse, yeah, that we feel that there is more. Okay, that is an inner signal that informs us, yeah, and we here within transCODES we call this the true self. Yeah, there's something in us. There's the greater truth in us. This would be this level here. Yeah, this level. Yeah, that needs to be fulfilled in order for us to get, you know, into these higher levels of you know, achievement, you know, or these higher vibratory goals, as I often call them. So what does this mean in plain English? In plain English, it means, you know, and you heard me say this in many different ways, you know, that first and foremost, we have to arrive in truth, and that requires us, you know, to overcome a few things. One of these quote unquote things you're very familiar with, Yeah, and that is the part here that on this level operates on this level and pulls us back into these things. What is this? A 3-letter word. What is the 3-letter word that keeps pulling us out of this higher goal, or these higher things that we are seeking, our higher vibratory intentions and goals? What do we call this, guys? It's on the screen right now.
Can't see anything on the screen.
Is it too small?
I'm only seeing grey, but it's okay. I'm very curious at the moment.
All right, does everybody only see gray?
No, I can see the screen.
Oh, okay, so then it's not me. Okay, yeah, so we got these lower levels here below truths, which correspond
Ego.
with these lower needs. We call this ego. It's like an autopilot. Yeah, we perceive it, as a person or something, as a force sometimes, that is holding us back. But really, it represents, the part. That's why I always say we need our ego to a certain degree. It's there to secure our survival, but it is not there to help us fulfill our goals, unless our goals are to be angry all the time, or to be victims all the time, or to be in pain all the time. Well, then the ego is a very good ally. Yeah, but if we have goals such as true love and healing and joy in life and peace, all right, then ego is not designed to get us there. Here, to simplify, we call it true self, just to distinguish between those two. Yeah, those are the lower I and the higher I, if you will. The lowercase I and the uppercase I. Okay, does this make sense? Yeah, and they're both part of us. Now, our higher goals, though, they're all here in this area, yeah, in these rows 6 to 10. And that's the problem. We often resort to tools that are located here in the lower version and the lower needs in order to get to the higher goals. Really, what it means is we're applying, tools that are outdated, okay, in order to evolve into realms that we haven't been yet, or at least that we haven't mastered yet. And we try this with our ego. We try to get there with the same things, that we used to, let's say, get here. Now, all we could accomplish here was a lot of stress and constant searching for more. In psychology, that's called saturation. Saturation means the satisfaction, the satisfying of short-term needs. Instant gratification. So the ego favors instant gratification over long-term success. And I think you guys all know this, right? So if you want to do a diet and you want to lose, let's say, not just like a few pounds, but let's say you want to lose, like 20 kilos or something like that, okay, that's a long-term ordeal. That should be, that should take you at least, like something like 9 months or 9 months to a year to do this in a healthy way and in a sustainable way. Okay. A year is a really long time for the ego, especially if you have chocolate in your drawer. Right?
Yeah, I have done it once though.
Uh-huh. No,
I lost
I was just
just
gonna say, go
I
ahead.
lost under 20, just under 20 kilos in a year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
with Weight Watchers actually.
Mm-hmm.
And I
And
kept it off for quite a few years, but then, as you say, something something happened, and I don't know,
yeah, so
moved away from.
what's the secret of Weight Watchers and all similar organizations? Do you know?
Oh, well, it's all about calories in, counting points, all this type
We
of
now
thing.
know that that's all not up to date, but there is
Yeah.
something else why it works. That is not why it works. It works
Oh,
because
I'm
of this
thinking
here.
of the group,
Yes.
The
group need.
program.
Yes. Yes. Because you have training buddies. You have weight
Mm,
loss buddies. You're doing this together. You cheer each other on.
yeah.
There's a feeling that comes with this. Yeah.
And for
There's an
me, there was also an accountability.
absolutely.
I had to go and, weigh in every week.
Yes. And that accountability is one of those antidotes to laziness. You know,
Mm,
that's an ego antidote. Yeah. Which is also why, all these success coaches say, well, telegraph, blast out what your goals are, because that makes you feel more accountable because then other people know your goals and they will remind you on it. Okay.
yeah.
But that's only if you have a problem with that. Okay. At the end of the day, it's all about self accountability
Yeah.
because your word should matter. Yeah. It's our thoughts, our words, our feelings. Yeah. And then ultimately also the ability to regulate and master our body. Yeah. What is good for us and what isn't good for us. Yeah. Because honestly, between us here, chocolate isn't bad. And you can
No.
lose weight with chocolate. You can. It
Yeah.
actually has quite a few antioxidants. It's a combination of stuff that you eat with it. Okay, so
Yeah.
it's not the chocolate that is the bad thing.
No.
It's the feeling that you have while you eat it because you feel like a cheater. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Just on a side
Yeah.
note here.
No,
Okay.
I get that.
Yeah. So the point being here that all these things, yeah, our thoughts, the way we think, the way we speak, what we say, yeah, how we feel about what we're saying, yeah, and how that translates into our body are really important. Well, I want to say factors, okay, that can work against us and they can work for us. For 2 years now, here in the Sacred of Healing community, we have been talking about mastering our choices, mastering our thinking, mastering our emotions. Guys, go back to these workshops. They're treasures. Okay. Yes, it's very structured, but that is exactly what we need to overcome this. You have to work through this with your ego. If you're not aware how you are making choices and how your emotions, your feelings, which is not the same, emotions and feelings are not the same, and
Mm.
your thinking play into that, quite frankly, you have no clue what you're choosing. And that's why it's difficult to know what your goals are, and that's why it's difficult to reach your goals. So this level here, this level of true connection and relation, yeah, is not just meant in regard to partners or weight loss groups or AA for that matter. Yeah, this is also the reason why 12-step groups work. And the same reason why Weight Watchers works. But it's the self-awareness, yeah, and the intimacy with yourself. There's this funny meme, intimacy, what that means. Into me, I see. And that's how you can maybe remember this. Into
Actually,
me,
that's
I
it.
see. Mm-hmm.
The word intimacy came to me when I was registering for this last night. So that's really interesting that you said that because I said I just need intimacy firstly with myself more, and then intimacy with others, and not the other way around.
No, and you know, the fact that we're all seeking it on the outside first is understandable, because that's the ego. It always looks for the shortcut. But we have to understand that looking for these higher goals on the outside, okay, is an illusion. Because these things cannot come from the outside. Everything here, green and turquoise, blue, purple, that's all stuff that can only come from within yourself, cannot come on the outside. Now, there is an outside factor to it when you get into these higher realms here, and that is that you begin to only socialize with people who are on that same level. Yeah, and then there's a mutuality that occurs. You no longer really have these encounters with people that distract you, that tempt you. You know, it's like no longer really on your radar. So the distractions and the temptations and the fears go away. So this is the part that a lot of people don't see, is that it actually gets easier the farther you get. But we get stuck here. And that is because there's something here that is holding us back from truly connecting with ourselves. Yeah, from this intimacy with ourselves. We lie to ourselves. And because we're lying to ourselves, we can't trust ourselves. And because we can't trust ourselves, we are not listening to our inner guidance. That's how simple that is. Let me say that again. We lie to ourselves, and because we're lying to ourselves, we can't really trust in ourselves. And because we can't trust in ourselves, we can't really follow through. And we don't listen to our inner guidance. Without inner guidance, and when I say inner guidance, I'm not talking about some spirit guide or guardian angel. Now, they do play a role in that, you know, how clear and how loud and, you know, how we get the inner guidance. But the inner guidance ultimately comes from your true self. And as I mentioned many times, your true self is the translator between, you know, your higher self, yeah, your soul self, if you will, and your conscious awake self. Yeah, it's the part, you know, of you that reminds you of the greater purpose, the greater goal, that reminds you of these goals. Now, how can I say this? How can I prove this, that these are the greater goals? I'll go as far as making a statement here and say these are the greater goals for all humanity. How can I say this? How do I know this? I can tell you why. Because everything in the universe, yeah, is a mirror reflection, is a sort of as below, so above, or as above, so below. Yeah, it's a fractal. In biology, we call this ontogenesis equals phylogenesis, meaning the way the universe works is the way how we work in a smaller microscopic version. Yeah, macrocosm equals microcosm. Every scientist can confirm that. And based on that, the potential of us humans, as we are today, is this. We all come to the world with that seed, with that potential, okay, to get here. Just like how when a baby is born with the seed to be an adult person. Yeah, every infant has all information and everything that it needs to become an adult already in it. Right? Same with the sunflower seed. It has everything it needs to become a sunflower in it. It needs a few other conditions, such as, you know, enough water, sunlight, and, soil, nutrients. So do we, humans. The first 15 to 20 years of our lives, we need others to take care of us because we cannot survive on our own. Yeah? The phylogenesis of humans is 20 years, which means that we need 20 years to mature into a full-grown human, which is why we have a highly developed maternal and paternal care. That's why we need parents and family in these first 15 to 20 years, because without them, we cannot optimally develop or cannot survive. But every human has that potential to grow into an adult, with a few exceptions, like genetic defects or, adverse circumstances, etc. But that's all here part of the biological and physiological needs. If they're not given, if there's no fitness for life, then obviously, we don't move on to these higher stages. And once we're 20, well, most of you here listening are older than 20, so you may remember what it felt like to be 20. Anybody remembers what it felt like to be 20? Did you think you had it all figured out when you were 20? I did. Little did I know. Yeah. Do you guys remember do you guys know what I'm talking about? Yeah. So with each of these stages, you think that you are on top of the world, but you really aren't. And that is something that you don't know until later, right? When you're 30, you look back to when you were 20 and you're like, oh my God, I didn't know anything. And then the older you get, you realize the more you know, the more you know what you don't know. Till you come to this point where you realize, wait a minute, maybe it's not about knowing things. Maybe it's about choosing freedom. As humans, we have the freedom to choose. And even though it often doesn't look that way in our lives. Why? Because we feel victims of our circumstances, don't we? But according to this, the circumstances just play a minor role. And you guys all know these examples. People who got diagnosed with terminal cancer or, lost everything in their lives and, later had these success stories. In fact, actually, most of the really famous people, not just monetarily, billionaires or something, but also scientists or artists or whatever, have gone through extremely adverse conditions. Are you aware of this? Most of the really famous people have had a really hard life. Now, what do you think made them overcome all that, the distractions, temptations, fears, and adverse circumstances?
Determination.
Okay.
There's something inside, and I've got it in me too, where you just know this is just not right. You can change this. I've always had that, and
So
it's
that
changed.
would you call that an
Sunflower.
inner guidance? Would you call that
I
an
would,
inner guidance?
yep, I would say it's an inner guidance with all that noise and all that abuse, and you know it's not you. You actually have a moment within, and you just say, it's a seed that starts. You say, it might not be today, but there is a day that's coming, one day that I can reclaim whatever the circumstances is now, and that seed is to overcome that. And
So
I've
this,
got that. I
mhm,
just don't know how to
okay. So
apply it.
what you're talking about is an inner impulse. That's an
Yep,
impulse. Okay.
I wouldn't be here today if I did not have that inner impulse.
And I think this is the same for most of us here. I can say that about myself as well. And I
For
know for
sure.
most of you, you know,
For
that
sure.
if I would have just gone sort of with the flow, and if I would have just gone with my ego, I wouldn't be here anymore. Okay. There is an impulse in us, and some can feel this impulse more clearly than others. Now, most of us feel that impulse in a negative way, like you described it earlier, Sean, in form of pain. Pain is an impulse, an inner guidance that tells us that something isn't right. So the question is, how good are we in interpreting, you know, what it is that isn't right? For that, we need self-awareness and self-reflection.
I think for me, it's not the fact of like having to be vulnerable and afraid and stuff like that. It's the staying in it. Because if I know I can feel my vulnerability or feel the fear and then say, what is it specifically? I can actually work through it now without too much hassle.
Mm-hmm.
It's more what I feel other people and the consequences of that will be if I take myself out in the world even more. But most of the time, it's
Mm-hmm.
actually fine. It's just what's happened before
So
that
then
comes
that
up
becomes a
again.
distraction. It becomes a distraction. You
Yes.
get distracted from your goals and from your self-actualization because you prioritize what other people think or say, or what the effect that it would have on others.
Even though I don't care what most people think and say about me, it's
Mm-hmm.
when it becomes a legality or when they have a paper form that's, I feel it's over me. And then I'm like, Sean, it's just a form. You
Mm-hmm.
haven't done anything wrong. You need to just follow that protocol. But that's just people covering their asses. It's not being any creativity coming out of it. I know
Mm-hmm.
I can work through it, but it's like, please, can someone hold my
Right.
hand once in a while and
Okay.
just
So
stop?
this is called antipathy. Okay. This is your ego. This is coming from your ego. Okay.
Thank
If you know that, you know, filling out this form in this example is what gets you to your goal, and you can't make yourself to fill out that form, then there is a force in you working against it. It's not magic or anything, but there is a force that is working against your determination.
Yes.
Just as a clarity statement here, there's no judgment in that. We just have to be aware of this, and then go into the next level and ask yourself, what is that is holding me back? What's my resistance here? And you already got half of that decoded. You have difficulties, I mean, from what I'm hearing, what you're sharing, like with maybe authorities or rules, or you know, government
Yes.
stuff or whatever. Okay, so then you go a step further and ask yourself, well, why do I have that resistance with that? It's just a protocol, right? That you're intelligent enough to know that. Okay, so why do I still have a resistance here? What's that related to? Where does this come from in me?
I know where this comes from. It comes from my father's ways of doing things and then
Yeah,
my ways of doing things and then how
yeah,
I've been punished. And
yep,
it's like, it's that thing on me, that scarlet letter. And it's like, that's not me
yep.
though.
That's
And
usually
what
what it is.
happens
So here
though,
you go. Mm-hmm.
it fixes itself without me doing anything because people just say, well, he clearly doesn't match up to what that other person's saying. It happens every time. And then I'm like, I actually get empowered by it. But then I'm like, whoa, I don't want to be destructive in that, like the other person or the party's being. So I'm trying to do what opposite of my father, but still be a success.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not working.
Yeah, no. Okay, so let's stop the tape here for a second and investigate this. Very beautiful how you identified that there was something in your subconscious which is related to your youth, yeah, to your childhood. You know, like it was old things that come up, the resistance you had to it, you know, the way your father wanted you to do things, and maybe the punishment that came over you when you know, didn't do it, or the pain that you felt when you did it. All old
Yep.
stuff. Has
Yep.
nothing to do with the form, right? Nothing to do with the form. And yet it's so powerful, though, that it can make you stop you in your tracks. That's psychology, guys. Okay, we all have that. That's unresolved stuff from the past. Now, the awareness making that you just did is very beautiful, because by making these unconscious things more conscious to us, we actually become empowered. However, you also pointed out another effect that can happen, namely that we do things in spite. Yeah, in spite or despite of your father, for example. And now you're in trouble, because now you replacing your drive to evolve and grow into whom you want to be with the drive to not be your father, which is still linked to the past and your lower self.
Oh, there's a lot of things in me that I actually like with my father that I'm finding out. I just don't do
And
it in
that's
the
a
same
sign of
way.
maturing. Yeah, that's a sign of maturing and evolving, because eventually we'll see, okay, there's some good things and there's some bad things, and that's with all.
Oh, there's a lot of things. Sorry, Jona, it's just that I saw, fuck, my father had to make certain decisions to survive, and then he had to keep on that track. It wasn't the right track, but he had to, and I understand that narrative that was so hard for him to keep up with. And there's such a deep compassion that I have with
Right.
that. And
That too is
it's
part of this maturing and evolving process, the compassion.
there's so much
It allows us
compassion.
to let go of that. It allows us to let go of the spite that we have and the resistance we, with our parents. And, the older we get, the less, this influences us or determines our choices. But for at least half of our life, guys, that's statistics, we're driven, okay, by things that are still unresolved from our first parts of our life, the first 20 years. And this is a very important distinction to make. Motivation is not the same as drive. Drive is more unconscious than motivation. Motivation can fluctuate, right? There will be days where you all, like whatever, and you can let it go. And then there'll be days where you can completely get pulled into it. So these aren't really good tools. That's what I'm trying to show you. Not only do they bind us to, a lower version of ourselves. Yeah, this part. They also fluctuate a lot. So when we have a feeling for what we want to evolve into, or whom we want to be, this is, how I usually express that. Who am I? Where am I from? And who do I want to be? Those three important questions. And then the fourth question, once you're at a certain level of awareness, yeah, how can I contribute? Most people get stuck in where am I from? And there's multiple reasons for that, but most of which have to do with psychology. Others can have to do with narratives, with stories that we were told, or things that we were, where people gave us labels, or told us who we are or who we need to be. Yeah, identity issues. But all of that is still linked to all these lower needs, to these ego motivations. So drive, while it can be very powerful, is still in the category of ego motivation. The true self motivation feels differently. You just demonstrated some of that to us here, Sean, with sharing about compassion. Now, true self motivation, yeah, can make us let things go or transcend, overcome things through compassion and empathy.
I can feel that actually right now. I feel a huge
Mm-hmm.
shift. Thank you.
Yes, because it opens our heart.
It
Yeah.
means a lot to me because My
it's
dad's messaging me again. You know, he's dying and he wants to come visit me. And even if he doesn't, just the fact that he's thinking of me, it's been so well to connect with those old parts in a different way.
But you have to recognize that, you know, the younger part in you that, you know, that connected with your dad, which was mostly here on this level, yeah, on the level of belongingness and lower kind of love, you know, just the fact that he's your dad, you know what I mean? Um, that kind of love is not the same kind of love that you are actually aiming at. So you just kind of mentioned this, Sean, you know, but because you already have an inkling that what your dad understands as love is not the same as what you understand as love. Yeah, so there's a
No, his is materialistic and
this
mine
material,
being
his is
seen.
limited. Yes, his is limited, and this is usually the case. You know, with this orange kind of love down here, you know, it's transactional in a way. It's more materialistic,
Yeah.
but you know, you maturing and you evolving can still allow you to make choices that are prioritizing compassion and empathy. And you can say, okay, this is this is his highest version of love. This is his highest version of love. Okay.
And
Yeah.
it's okay. It's not
And
evil.
it's
It's
okay. Exactly.
that's where he evolved to.
Mhm.
And you know what? He didn't fight like I did to find truth. You know, he fought to find truth in the external.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so
Right there.
actually, it's actually I feel quite proud of myself now almost for
Yeah.
even just
Because
attempting.
there's a temptation in, you know, trying to find fulfillment with material stuff and esteem, you know, what other people think of you. So they're all externalized. There is a temptation in this, and we all go through this. But at some point, we realize that that is not the kind of love that we're actually looking for. Yeah.
Well,
That
most people can't affirm their own esteem.
no,
You know,
that's true.
so if
Most
they can't, then how can I expect them to do it for me?
exactly. But this is
Sorry,
something that
Jona.
we really see a difference here. Yeah, in
Sorry,
people
I'm
when they
laughing.
start entering truth, okay, their heart opens up. And here in the map of consciousness, you can see that I'm differentiating this here again, not just you know, ego um, and true self, but there's another barrier here, and that is the heart consciousness. So once you entering into your heart consciousness, okay, then you are becoming able to not only feel and differentiate, but also make choices based on that true connection and that unconditional love. Yeah, it requires all these different stages here, yeah, of development. Yeah, you have to have that down, okay, to feel, you know, what it truly feels to connect with something or someone, regardless, say, of the past or regardless of, you know, the things that tickle your ego. Yeah, it's what warms your heart, what opens your heart. And in the last 2 months in the energy alignment, I have some codes in there, and they say, you know, when something, you know, opens your heart and or lets you feel, you know, your open heart and the warmth of your soul, and when it challenges your ego, that's when you know you grow. Yeah, because fundamentally, the needs that someone develops, yeah, when they're in their heart are now very different from ego needs, and the ego rebels. The ego puts up a lot of resistance. And this takes a little bit of practice and a little bit of transcendence. And this is then when maturity sets in. Yeah, when we begin to realize that certain things in life are simply not worth it. Yeah, because we're wasting our energy. Yeah, like Diana, like you said this in the beginning. We're wasting our energy. And why do we feel like we're wasting our energy? Simply because it's not getting us where we want. Yeah. So these are the other keywords here that we have to keep in mind if we really want to go for it, if you will. We need to be aware of our drive, and that's what John just shared with us was a very good example, you know, for how we can be driven by old things, by ego things, without even fully being aware of it. It's in the realm of the subconscious, so we have to make, you know, the unconscious conscious, and that informs us, you know, how our intentions and motivations can be, well, I'm going to use the word false here, but not in the meaning of wrong, but in the meaning of still tied to things that are no longer really congruent with our values. Yeah, so sometimes, you know, the motivation to show it to the world or to show it to, you know, my dad that I can do it on my own. You know what I mean? This can get us to a certain level, but then we can't get any farther than that because it's not a good enough motivation. Yeah, and this is where most of our collective is at right now, you know, because right now the question of purpose is coming and what's this all for? Why am I even doing this? And those are self-reflective questions. When you feel them, they are in and of themselves immaterial in their nature. And all immaterial questions in life cannot be answered through material or external things. Those are internal questions and internal processes that we call spiritual. So anything that has to do with purpose and meaning, love, fulfillment, healing, peace, joy. Yeah, you see this here? Self-expression, inspiration, abundance. They're not only spiritual questions, they're very high vibratory spiritual questions. And in order to answer them and then to formulate goals that match up with that, we cannot use the same tools that the ego uses. You know, the ego wants to be in control, wants to be special. The ego judges, and the ego has sympathy and antipathy. Yeah? That is a force that is holding you back from reaching these, because here you cannot have those. Why can you not have those? Because you don't need those. That's no longer your need. Not only could you care less about what other people think, you also know that you can't get it from the outside. It's not something that you have to go out there and acquire. It's something that has to come from within yourself. And now you're starting to realize that, you know, what spiritual teachers like myself always repeat, this journey isn't about acquiring things, getting, owning, having something. This journey is about eliminating or reducing the things that are holding you back from getting there, because you have all these tools and all that you need already in you, but there are forces that are working against that. Forces inside of you and forces outside of you. Forces inside of you, you all know this now. What are the forces inside of you that are working against it? All the stuff that we sort of put together into like what we call ego. Shortcut, instant gratification, judgment, distraction, fears, pain, all these things, guilt, victimhood, all the things that you see down here, disdain, envy, jealousy, all these things. Those are the forces that are holding us back, that are creating the struggle in life. The struggle that we experience when we want to move into higher levels of fulfillment. And what does this all come down to? Well, in the last episode, in the last workshop, I made this very clear. It's the way you think, the way you feel, and the way you make choices. You need to be able to master that. If you are not aware how you're thinking, then you don't know what these thoughts are that you are thinking and that you are expressing through your words. And if you don't know what these words are that you are putting out there, if you don't have control over that, if you can't master how you communicate yourself, then you can't master your attitude and your motivation. And if you can't master your motivation, you have no will. So in a nutshell, what would you conclude gives you motivation? What motivates you, or what should motivate you if you are out for these higher goals, these higher needs? Where does the motivation to get that need to come from?
I know, I think I'll have a stab. It's like I can go into a cognitive dissonance if I'm not doing all my stuff. Like if I'm watching TV and I'm triggered by something, it's like, Sean, you're not going to get anything. This is your ego. And then I'll go and I'll do an activity. Like I do stretching. I've been doing it for about 4 months. And instead of just going, oh, I'll drag myself to do it, I'm like, nah, you're at a certain level now. And then I'll let it go and I'll stretch even more. And then I'll feel this motivation to say, wow, you've been doing this. It's been repetitive, but you've been like consciously doing it, and like I can feel the results, and that motivates me, and that makes me closer to myself as well.
So
It's
you're
just
mastering your motivation. Okay, it clearly is a good tool, because when you can feel that your goal is closer, when you can
but
feel
not
something like progress.
not mentalizing it with an outcome, but that it actually feels like it's just working for me, not towards anything, but just working for me in that moment.
Now, let me just help you out here a little bit. When you
Please.
find yourself doing things that distract you, so watching TV instead of doing the things that you need to do, okay, that's a distraction. You're choosing unconsciously to let yourself get distracted, okay? And you realize it, and that because it creates a certain type of pain in you. You call this cognitive dissonance. On the
Yep.
scale of all the pains that humans can experience, a cognitive dissonance is the most painful thing. What is a cognitive dissonance? It's the inner back and forth. It's the conscience, I guess they used to call this. The conscience, that plagues you. Okay. So in order to get out of, so you realize that in order to get out of that state, out of that painful state, you have learned, which is a great thing, that you need to shift your energy. You need to shift your energy first, because it's like a bad momentum. Okay. Yeah. So whenever you feel yourself getting pulled into laziness or apathy, or these kind of sort of non-productive states, okay, it is very smart, okay, in order to beat yourself up, in order to get somewhere, to not beat yourself up, but to shift your energy. Yeah. So to take a break from what you're doing and to stretch, great idea. But that's only the shifter. That's only at the very beginning of the process of transcending the laziness or the apathy. That's just the first step to disrupt the forces that are holding you back from it. That's not the action. That's just a disruptor. Disruptors are needed to shift your energy. Yeah, it's here. It's the stop. Okay. But you said something important. You said you need it's the feeling too. Yeah. So you go within, you connect within. So the stretching helps you, to disrupt the negative influence, the apathy state, the laziness, right? And then that allows you to connect with yourself a little better. It gives you a little bit of space. It gives you a little breathing space. Okay.
Yes, yes, I
But
feel
then
that
it
now.
can't stop here. You see that? There's a color coding here, and this is all
I
connected
can't
with
see it,
another.
but I'm with you.
Yeah, you're going to see it on the video. Sorry. Are you on the
Ah,
phone?
that's fine. The video will be great. Thank you.
Yeah. And all these are part of the Sacred Self-Healing course, these infographics that I'm pointing at. So you
Hmm.
can't stop there. It's just the connecting within is actually the one that then catapults you into that higher state of connection with yourself, the green state, as I called it earlier. And that then allows you to feel something more like neutrality. Now you can ask yourself, okay, what was I doing there? I can't believe I've watched, 5 episodes, of this dumb show instead of doing what I committed to doing, whatever,
Yes, that's already
filling
that
out the form.
conversation I've already
Yeah.
having with myself now all the time.
So you get into that neutral state. That's neutral. Yeah, that's a neutral state. That's good because you're actually now feeling what it is that creates the pain. You now know, what it actually is that you need to do. And now comes the important part. Now you need to go a step further and own it fully and say, okay, this is what I'm doing. I'm choosing laziness and apathy or, just ignoring this over, what it is that I set myself, you know, to accomplish or to do. Is this the choice that I want to make right now? Now, this is how you guys can do this. You can ask yourself, is this really what I'm choosing right now? And Diana, this is where the self accountability comes in. Because if you're actually asking yourself that question, are you sure that you want to choose that apathy right now over, what you committed to yourself? Are you sure that's what you want to do? Because you're making a lower vibratory choice. And every lower vibratory choice leads to a lower vibratory outcome. So if you're choosing this right now, this is literally the inner dialogue that you need to have in those moments. You know that you cannot reach your manifestation goal. It would be an illusion that this would get you there. So you have to call yourself out on what it is that you're choosing. And this is where it helps actually to work this in this structured way, because you have to use your own ego mind, yeah, to prove to yourself that that cannot get you there. You have to be willing to own it. Now, let's take the chocolate. You can say to yourself, you know what? Yes, I'm totally okay for this. We talked about the chocolate cakes, the last workshop, the chocolate cakes of life. Sometimes you just want it and it's totally okay for as long as you can own it. Because if you make this a conscious choice and you say, you know what? I think that today I'm going to take a time out and today I'm just going to binge watch my show and eat as much chocolate as I can. I'm going to feel like crap tomorrow, but at least I can't blame it on anything else. I
Yeah.
own this.
Yeah.
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 Do you know what I
I do.
mean? Here, in a
Oh,
general,
yeah, I do. I mean, I'm just listening to all of this and thinking there's a lot of relevance to me. But yeah, I'll sit on the lounge as well with the dog and I'll think, look, if you do want to, get back into tarot, you really should be, not sitting there in front of the
no,
TV and I like to
no,
blame the
that's
dog.
different.
Oh, but if I go and sit in front of the computer, the
Okay,
dog's going to come and harass me and I'm not, not going to get
great
any
example.
peace.
Great example. This is exactly what I didn't say. That's exactly what I did not mean. Because this is what we do. We beat ourselves up. We
Yeah.
pour oil on the fire and increase the cognitive dissonance. Oh, I shouldn't be doing this. I should do this. I should do that. And that's exactly what we need to stop doing, because that
Mm.
comes from the ego. Owning what you're doing, being fully present in what you're doing and what you're choosing sounds differently in your head. That's like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm sitting here on the lounge with the dog on my lap,
Yeah.
and there are some things that I really need to do. But right now, this moment, and until I decide differently, it is so.
Yeah.
I am truly enjoying petting my dog and enjoying the moment until I don't.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I get that. I hear you. And then a part of me thinks, well, you know, if you're going to get to this, you know, what my purpose is, then sitting on the lounge with the dog isn't going to get you there, you know?
Well, it depends on the attitude with which you do that. Okay, I
Yeah.
give you examples which can be, you know, based on very, very high vibratory um, goals and purpose. And that is if you're so frazzled all day long that you can't even feel yourself, yeah, and sitting on the lounge chair for 5 minutes, connecting with your dog. Dogs calibrate on a very high level. They calibrate at 525. Okay, let me show you this.
Mm.
Where 525 is. You use your dog and actually that connection with your dog in that moment to catapult yourself into a higher state consciously, not out of laziness, out of this connects me with me. This
Yeah.
connects me here. 525 is here, guys. That's
Ah,
heartwarming.
yeah.
Yeah. And you really marvel, you know, the hair on your dog and how cute he is and how sweet he is. And I mean, with cats, that works even better because they start purring. At 525, your cat starts purring.
Yes.
Mm.
No, I'm not
Oh,
kidding. This is all science,
I
guys.
know.
All
I've
right.
got
And
one that
in that
does that.
moment, you are being flushed with that energy. Okay. And then
Yeah.
eventually it will run out. Eventually it will run out. You know, like it will still be there, but you're filled up with it. And now you step into action. You realize that what you truly needed was that. That is what you need.
Mm.
You know, when I'm frazzled, when I'm distracted, when I run around like a chicken with a head cut off, okay, I grab the dog brush, lay down on the floor with my dog, one of them. I grab one of them, you know, I need your service, and I brush them, and that connects me with myself again. That grounds me, that centers me, it clears me, and it connects me with this deep, deep love that I have with my dogs. I can have that with my kids. I can have that with Jeff. I can have that with a lot of things in my life because I've created a life where everything that I have around me really does that for me. And that's then the next step. You arrange your life and your life circumstances accordingly because you are aware of the importance of that state. And you are aware of the forces that are holding you back from it. So you see how important it is to do that. And you give it that meaning. You give it that meaning. But you can't lie to yourself. At some point, yeah, you have to step into action again. It's this sort of in and out press, is that pulse. Now, yeah, that you have given, you know, these 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes with your dog, that meaning, you will feel empowered to do the things that you know are going to further help you to reach whatever it is, you know, to go to what it is that you wanted to do. But your attitude, in your case here with what you're sharing, Diana, is that of self-sabotaging.
Mm.
In that moment where you are experiencing this, you are simultaneously telling yourself that if you now go up and sit down and actually practice tarot cards, that the dog will do this. The
Yeah.
very same dog that just helped you to connect with yourself will then pester you.
Yeah. Yes.
And
Yeah.
that's why you're not even trying.
Yeah.
That's an illusion. In
Mm.
fact, that's called self-deception,
Yeah.
deceiving
Yeah.
yourself. You're making this a reason why you can't do this, and there you've externalized it all and threw it out in the garbage.
Yeah.
Right there. Now,
Yep.
on a practical level, I'm a mom, I'm a dog owner, I'm a cat owner. I know how pestering dogs and kids can be and cats can be. I know all about that distraction. All right, then you make compromises, you manage it. You say, okay, there's certain times of the day, where the dog is much more relaxed and sleeps and stuff like that. So I use that kind of time. Or you train your dog. You say, dude, and I'm oversimplifying here, obviously. I used to be in dog training, so I know it's not like that. But yeah, it takes a year, to get your dog to like, okay, when I'm sitting on the computer, you shut up, go to your place. And you actually go through that knowing that that is going to help you, reach your goals.
Yeah.
So you go through the work, through the steps it takes.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. And sometimes, Sean, it takes to fill out forms. I hate forms just as much as you do. Okay. But I also don't delude myself, because I know if I'm not filling out those forms, I'm going to run into bigger problems later. I can't blame it on the government agencies, because it was me who didn't fill out the forms. So we need to let go of the stuff that then comes in as sort of the self-sabotage, or as the, the delusion or the illusion. Okay, we let that go. And this is what you see here as the light purple. At some point, we need to revisit that. At some point, we need to see, how that's just part of life. Yeah, and that there will be days where, where it will be a lot easier for us to do this, and then there will be days where it's a little harder, and that is okay too. But at the end of the day, and you see this here on the highest level of letting go, the highest level of how to shift your energy, okay, the resolution comes in through you choosing consciously. Yeah, so this too is part of the sacred self healing here. This is the cues and how to shift your energy, how to do this, how to get yourself into higher vibratory states. From all the way at the bottom, I'm freaking out, I'm triggered, where you're just sort of reactive, to asking yourself, wait, what's going on here? How am I truly feeling? And taking a breather and then disrupting it, like stretching, for example, no more of the same. I need to stop this. Yeah. So what can I do right now? Yeah, to interrupt this. To, where does my energy go now? What do I get pulled into? Yeah. And how does this truly feel? Is this comfortable? Is this actually a state that I want to be in? No. Okay. Then you need to ask yourself the next question. This is step one, sacred self healing. What am I getting out of staying here? What's the payoff? If we keep doing things that we don't want to do, okay, that cannot get us to where we want to go, and that means there is some kind of hidden payoff that we are not aware of, because our ego wouldn't do it if there wasn't anything in it for it. There could be anything from, just laziness or apathy, as I call it, ignorance, not today, tomorrow, to victimhood. Oh, it's always like this, or, not enough courage. Oh, I've already tried this and it isn't working. I'm not good enough. Oh, I don't have what I need. If I only had more money, then I could do it. Or if I only had a partner, then it would be easier. Those kind of things. Those are all distractions, and they all come from the ego. Oh, my mom just called. Oh, my kid is sick. Oh, this, and you drop everything and, let go of your own stuff without even double checking if it's appropriate. Yeah. And jump onto the next wagon. This is all like based on external stuff. None of that is actually happening in you at that minute. It's not real in you. It feels real. Well, it is real to a degree, but it's not true. So you have to call you out. What is my part in this? Now, why am I agreeing to this? And then you ask, okay, there are some aspects of that that I'm not fully understanding, but I do get the inner guidance here that this isn't the way to go. And I trust in that. I choose to listen to my inner guidance. How did my inner guidance communicate that to me? Through pain, through cognitive dissonances, through constant back and forth, through constant frustration or stuckness. Those are inner signals that whatever it is that you're choosing isn't getting you where you need to go. So you have to trust. And when you can trust in your inner guidance, that's when you learn to transcend things, and you will notice that it gets easier and easier. Yeah. And you become more and more aware of what it is that you truly need. That you truly need to feel loved, to feel safe, to feel in peace. And it becomes easier for you to express that to the world. How? By your choices, by the choices that you're making. You're just not engaging in things anymore that are not doing that for you. And then you continue your path, and you keep striving for better choices. You ask yourself, how can I find better ways? How can I reconcile some of the baggage that I'm carrying around with me that keeps distracting me and so forth? You know, you're aware of all these ups and downs, but you're simply choosing not to give it the power. You're choosing to stay in your power based on what you've identified as your true needs, your true wants, and your true goals. The forces that are working against us here, summarized, are externalization, delusion, illusion, magical thinking, egomania, and disillusionment. And those are all ego forces. Seen from an esoteric point of view, if you want to call them dark forces, yeah, so the ego in and of itself isn't dark, but the ego has a different goal than your true self does, or your higher self. What's the ego's goal, guys?
Protect you at all costs.
And there's more to it. I always say this, I call this the ego paradigm. Avoiding pain, seeking pleasure. That's the ego paradigm. And that's how the ego tries to protect you at all cost. That's how the ego does that. There's nothing wrong with it, but you can only get to that place of sort of fake identity, false self. Yeah, with avoiding pain and seeking pleasure, you cannot get into your true self or your heart. Now, does this mean that you have to embrace pain and abstain from pleasure? That's what the old Hindus did, right? Yeah. Asceticism, and we punish yourself,
No, because then
refrain from all pleasures of life. No,
you're
it
not
doesn't
allowed
mean
heart to experience the pleasure instead of your head experiencing it.
that. Exactly. So you're refusing life, so life has a lot to offer. Okay. But you have to have the courage, what it means, the antidote to, seeking, to avoiding pain and seeking pleasure is facing pain and consciously enjoying every moment. Yeah. So avoiding pain and seeking pleasure is an automatism that is programmed into us. We do this unconsciously. Facing pain requires a certain level of self-awareness and self-reflection. What is my pain here? What is my payoff? Why am I doing this? And in asking these kind of questions, you are transcending your pain. You are facing your pain. And when it comes to pleasures, granting yourself the pleasures that you want to have, not the unconscious pleasures. Yeah, the robotic binge eating or binge watching or whatever. I mean, once in a while, that's okay if you choose to, if you consciously choose to doing that. But it is, the conscious pleasure. And conscious pleasure we call joy. What brings you joy, what uplifts you, what empowers you, what nourishes you. It's a shift in attitude toward yourself that helps you do that. Yeah, food is a great example. Of course, we can eat crap just to cover the calories that we need. Yeah, but down the road, if we eat consciously and if we eat crap every day, we're going to come up with other problems. So it's normal for us in the course of our life to, figure out what is good for us and what isn't. There is not a single diet out there that is aligned to you, because your unique metabolism, your unique life circumstances, and your energies, okay, are unique to you. So it's your responsibility, need to find what works well for you, what empowers you, what enlivens you, what nourishes you, and what doesn't. It's the reason why our next workshop is all about mastering our body. And a lot of that has to do with nutrition. A lot of that has to do with, how we treat our bodies. And they call it this attitude because this has to do with how you feel about yourself and your life. If you treat your body like crap, well, that's like treating your car like crap. Okay? Most people that I know treat their cars better than themselves. Yeah, they give their car a good clearing every week. They put only the good oil in, they use the better fuel, and so forth. Why? Because they know that if you treat your car really well, it will last longer, right? So these things all connect in your attitude toward life, in your life view. So the ego view is based on you seeing yourself as the product of external forces. That's what externalization means, in a good and in a bad way. You make yourself depend on validation and what other people think and how they see you and all that. But you, at the same time, you also see yourself, as a victim of outer circumstances. So externalization is where you fundamentally give up your power to choose. And this is what most people are not aware of with laziness and apathy and disillusionment, all these things here. Yeah. Illusion, delusion, magical thinking, or egomania. You give up your power to choose. And one thing is for certain, I can tell you that out of my own experience, because I see these energies working with everybody. If you're not making a choice, what you're thinking, what you're doing, what you're eating, yeah, what you're choosing, somebody or something else will. And that's what we call dark forces. So if you are not conscious of your choices, that's like an open invitation out there, yeah, to, like, let's just call them dark forces, yeah, the anti forces, yeah, the ones that disempower you, that disillusion you, that take away your motivation and take away your courage, that take away your resolve and your determination. Okay, that work against it, like everything in the universe. Yeah, the anti force that keeps everything in balance. And in our day and age, it's fundamentally these three things, these three categories of dark forces. Those are categories. Materialism. Yeah, materialism doesn't see any deeper purpose behind human life. It, reduces everything to the material. Yeah, life itself is just the body and just the DNA, and there's nothing beyond that. That's all about getting, having, owning. And on the other side, we have New Age, or New Age, as a sort of transfiguration of spirituality, namely, oh, if you just, don't do anything, then everything's going to be fine. You're going to be in the flow. Everything's fine. We all sing, we all hold hands and sing Kumbaya together. Everything's going to be fine. New Age is, in fact, a dark force because it drives you into apathy, into not doing anything. Yeah, it's Luciferian in nature because it promises you sort of the delusion of a better world without you having to do anything. It's extremely appealing to the ego. Yeah, because New Age propagates, you don't have to do anything. If you just believe in it hard enough, it's all going to be there for you. And we all know how that's working, right? That doesn't work because it's still unconscious. And then the third category of dark forces that works against us, and this is something that is on the rise right now, it's a very strong dark force that is coming, is transhumanism, not the kind that New Age propagates, no, but the kind that negates human life altogether, that sees life and the world and the planet basically as a mistake. God made a mistake. And only we can correct that. We need augmentations, we need DNA alterations. In fact, we actually need a new planet and need to start all over. That's what transhumanism says. Transhumanism is a negation of life itself, of the force that brought life into existence, that brought you into existence. It's very dark. And it expresses in the, this human sort of perverted need to overcome the fear of death, yeah, through all this like sort of anti-aging, longevity, and overcoming, like trying to copy your consciousness into a machine, and cloning yourself and then downloading your consciousness into your clone. Really? That's literally saying a soul doesn't exist, okay, and life has no purpose. Okay, just saying.
Jona, where do you think that's going to end up? Because I've been
Let's not
watching
get
different.
distracted with this right now.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
distraction. It's a distraction from yourself. We will dedicate a whole entire workshop to these dark forces once more. I've already done 4 workshops on these dark forces. I will do it again because there's new temptations and new distractions that come in. But
I was just interested with, the transhumanism, because there's a lot of that, as you say,
yes,
around at the moment, and
it's
people
transfer.
trying to reverse aging. Do you think that is not a bad thing, but
I
you
just
think
said
that's dark?
it's dark.
Dark,
Yes, it's dark. Yeah,
right.
it's
Yeah.
dark. It's all just there. It's a illusion, okay, that our ego buys into, that it could overcome death that way.
Well, that's interesting, actually, because I heard this fellow say the goal was do not die. And he spends millions of dollars trying to reverse
Yeah, all that
age.
is extremely dark.
Right. Oh,
Extremely dark. Yeah, extremely dark. Everything, that goes into like, Mars colony and all this negating of human evolution, and like the forces that are actually here, that to help us evolve. Okay, is the negation of that. Okay, so death is an important part of that evolution. Okay, and we talked about this many times because we are spirit in nature. Okay,
yeah.
that's where we came from, and that's where we go back to. And if you want to stop dying, okay, that means you don't want to go back to spirit.
Right.
Okay, but this is a whole different subject. This is very distracting for the New Age mind. Okay, now you're no longer thinking about your own choices. Now you're thinking about all the dark forces that are out there. And what you're not realizing, that's not you, Diana, but this is what is happening with most people, is that you're already under the influence of it. Yeah, and you're not realizing how some of your attitudes to it, life, and to it yourself are actually already manipulated by these streams of dark forces that are working through you every day. Yeah. Oh, the planet's going to die anyway. Oh, it's all just corporations, all just about money. There's nothing I can do. Oh, it's for as long as I have my retirement all set, I'm going to be fine. Oh, it's just about, comfort and, about my needs. And these are all dark forces that are working through you. Why? Because they're holding you back from reaching your higher potential. So this is an extremely important realization. Yeah, and this isn't so far off from, you know, like ancient spiritual texts that talk about, you know, these personified entities, okay, that whisper into your ear. Yeah, and that's, oh, you know, just you know, here in Christianity, for example, is that the 40 days in the desert, right before the Last Supper, you know, where the serpent comes and says, hey, you're like God's son, and you could change all this, and you don't have to go through all this suffering, and you know, you could just like poof it all away, or you can just kill them all, you know, and create a better kingdom and all that. These temptations, that these forces, they constantly work with us. Yeah, through temptations, compelling, through greed, through, you know, like, you know, the main, you know, this the deadly sins and so forth. Those are all symbols of that ego stuff. That's all ego stuff, and that's what the dark forces play into. You know, hey, here's a shortcut. Hey, you don't have to die. Hey, you know, it could be so much more comfortable. You know, hey, that's so much less work. Hey, you can be rich overnight. You know, all these things, yeah, are dark forces playing into your ego. And this can only happen to you if you're not conscious of your thinking and of your feeling and how you make choices. If you are conscious of that, you can feel that. You're like, what the heck? Well, this morning I was all, you know, up and going, you know, you know, I had this like great idea, and I was starting to like really get into this and following through, and I felt this inspiration, and I felt really connected with it, and all of a sudden I'm laying on the couch and not doing anything, and I'm suffering, yeah, via those cognitive dissonances, yeah, this conscience, you know, like that is reminding me, hey, you were all inspired a few hours ago. What happened? Oh, yeah. Oh, I got this phone call. Oh, yeah, and the weather is too hot or too cold. Or, oh, yeah, there is this TV show that I want to do. You know, like, I get it. I get it. We have
You're
to be
describing
more
me.
awake. Well, sorry. You know, I can't help it. I'm an energy reader, so I'm channeling some of the things that you are carrying in you, you know, without trying. Yeah. But this is the point, guys. This is how dark forces feed on you. And the more they feed on you, the more your soul and soul connection shrivels. Now you might ask, okay, how can I reverse that? How can I pump myself back up? How can I feed my soul again? Right? Because it's a constant sort of balancing act. Constant. How can I feed my soul? How can I build myself up again? Well, I gave you guys an example earlier how I do this sometimes. When I'm really low, I go on the floor with my dog and brush my dog and connect with the love that I have for my dog, or I connect with my husband or my kids, or just the beauty of, you know, the birds building a nest here right next to me, you know, like a meter away from where I'm sitting, and I'm watching them, and I'm just marveling the beauty of all of that. That reconnects me. That feeds my soul. When I'm consciously focusing on feeling my heart, and it poofs all that babble, you know, that dark force babble away. And I'm like, yeah, that's when I'm there. I mean, I'm like a broken record, guys, because I teach this for 15 years now, non-stop. Okay. Ground, center, clear, and pray, you know, or however you want to call this, you know, meditate. Okay, go into the state. You have to actively do this. If you're not doing it, somebody else, something else will do it with you. And then you will, in fact, be controlled by external forces. But it's not how you think. You are not a victim of these dark forces. You are unconsciously choosing it. So not choosing to feed your soul is also a choice. And that's what it means to own your choices. Choosing not to meditate when you feel that you really need it. Is choosing to allow these dark forces to distract you. So what are these forces that can feed your soul, that can, make you immune to these dark forces? Well, I talk about it all the time. Truth, freedom, love. What does truth mean? Well, self-awareness, self-reflection, consciousness. What does freedom mean? Choosing. Recognize that you have a choice, that you have the power to choose that in every moment of your life. And yes, you're not always going to make higher vibratory choices. That's normal. It's a constant striving toward it. That's why it's a pyramid, right? A pyramid always means, the foundation is not so good, but it's strong and it helps you to elevate yourself. So it's a constant process until, you reach a point where you feel something like fulfillment and love. Without truth, there cannot be love. Without freedom, there cannot be love. So guys, if you're still looking for love, all right, the true love, the true connection, all right, work on truth with yourself and freedom, become the master of your choices. Because without those two, there is no love, not that kind of love that you are longing for, that unconditional love. That is the product of self-awareness, self-reflection, self-accountability, and self-responsibility in form of making conscious choices. And then you'll see that love is everywhere. If we're not in truth, then we will fall for any illusion, delusion, magical thinking, superstition that is out there. And these karmic aspects that I mentioned earlier, they have to do with, certain layers of, how purpose is sort of woven. Okay, so we obviously, as individuals, come in with a personal karma, and then, we have this sort of next layer, which is the family karma, which kind of weaves through our family lineage, and then we have sort of a tribal karma, right? Like it's like with all our ancestors as a group soul. And then we have the karma that connects us to our nation and to what we identify with, like maybe the race that we are. Yeah, and then we have like white or Middle Eastern or Northern European, or what I mean. And then there's the karma of sort of the era that we're in. Yeah, every era also has a different karma. Yeah, that's what I often describe, in minute detail with these collective energies. The collective energies are the energies of the time. Yeah, they're linked to the timeline that we're in, to the era that we're in. And then there's the karma that has to do with our planet as such. Yeah, the planet Earth in and of itself is also an entity. Yeah, and we are the outer expression of the evolutionary process of Gaia. And then there is the karma here for our whole entire solar system, okay, that's tied to the star sun, okay, at its center. And then there's the karma of our whole galaxy, okay, and some other that we cannot see yet because we don't have the measuring tools and the scope for that, whatever, higher hierarchy of galaxy, let's just call it universe, okay. These things all play into our choices. Yeah, the universal, the cosmic plan of things. But one thing, and this is the beauty of, like someone like me who can look at it from an esoteric point of view and from a scientific point of view, one thing that even science agrees on is that there is a force, yeah, like one force, one centropic force, Yeah, the antidote to entropy. Entropy is chaos, and syntropy is that sort of one unifying force, yeah, that brought all that into existence, that supersedes it all. So at the end of the day, love and light heals it. That is true. Yeah, but it can only be manifested at a higher level of consciousness. Why? Because at lower levels of consciousness, what we regard as truth or what we regard as love isn't really truth or love or freedom for that matter. So it requires us to face these adversities that life brings in, yeah, in form of these quote unquote dark forces for us to grow and to discern. If there were no adversities, guys, if there were no struggles, do you think you would want to grow?
No,
No. That's
I
Garden
wouldn't
Eden.
want to grow.
No, that's Garden Eden. You know, where we were innocent and where we didn't have any consciousness whatsoever, where everything was provided for us and we didn't have any reason to question anything or to grow, nothing. We didn't have to worry about anything. You know? We didn't even need an ego. Yeah? So that's like infant state. Yeah? At the infant state, we don't worry about anything. Everything's provided for us. But spiritually seen, humanity is at a higher developmental stage than infancy. We went through infancy in Garden Eden, so to speak, metaphorically spoken. Yeah, and then we gained the level of I consciousness, you know, where we became aware of our individuality. Yeah, the terrible twos. Yeah, and where we became this like sort of egomaniac, you know, dog eats dog, you know, all just for me phase, you know, and early humanity. And then we went through the development of our bodies, you know, they became more and more adapted. Then we went through the development of our intellect. Yeah, so like the first 10, 13 years of our life. Yeah, the development of our intellect, you know, found its height, you know, like around the Roman Greco time. Yeah. And then we set out to develop our feeling, how we feel about things. The height was around like the 15th century. And now, since, you know, the 15th century, we're exploring as humanity materialism, you know, and industrialization and technology and so forth. They're all part of that. So we're at the height of that right now. And whenever, you know, something is at the height of something, it doesn't actually develop further. It begins to devolve and then, you know, collapse, if you will, and then the next developmental stage arises. Yeah, so we are ready to go the next step into true adulthood, really, from a spiritual point of view. Yeah, around, I'd say we're at the stage of like 18-year-olds, maybe 16, between 16 and 18-year-olds, like late teenagehood, compared to the total potential that we have as humans. But each and every one of us can reach a higher potential if we can see that, if we're willing to face that. But not through becoming greater, you know, ego people, yeah, not through more egoism and materialism, but to recognize that as individuated souls, we can work together through resource sharing, through collaboration, through mutuality, through cooperating. And that's the next phase of development. I talk about this all the time. That's where we are headed. And that's something that we will already experience in our lifetime. Yeah, this shift to this. It's already happening right now. And now the question is, where do you want to be? Where do you see yourself in that? Do you want to continue giving away your powers to forms? You know, while they're still needed today, you know, they won't be needed in the future. Because when others develop higher stages of consciousness, then there is no such need for an other authority anymore. It's just unrealistic, you know, to say, oh, you know, if we just all hold hands together and sing Kumbaya, everything is going to be fine. That's unrealistic. That's not going to happen. The consciousness level is way too low. That'd be anarchy, and everything would be collapsed. So we're not far enough developed to actually self-organize. That's not a dark force. That's simply, you know, I'm speaking as a parent here. You know, you can't send out your 16-year-old and expect your 16-year-old to be able to make his or her own living, you know, to understand who they are and what their place is in life and have this all figured out. With 16, you can't have that figured out yet. We have not figured this out yet. But as individuals that are feeling that inner impulse, that seed in us, okay, that makes us want to strive there and that feel the pain of not growing. Because that's what it is that you're experiencing. The pain, your struggle is the pain of not growing. Okay, we are called to grow beyond these things that we already know aren't true to us. So just the mere fact that you suffer from not doing the things that you know you should do, okay, tells me that you're already on your way to, you know, your growth, to your next evolutionary state. Now you just got to do it. You just got to trust in it. You just got to follow that. It has nothing to do with the outside. So these last words, just for all of us as a reminder, you know, that it's ultimately, you know, now on us, yeah, to make the unconscious conscious and really live our life according to the potential that we choose, yeah, according to whom we want to live this life as. That's up to you. That's your freedom. But we can no longer make the outside responsible. Because if we do, we give up the power to choose, and we're also giving up truth. Because we already know deep down that that is not true. How do I know that you know that? Because you struggle with it. Here, just before I let you go, last call. I know that you've probably heard me say this already. The soul self initiation, which is the grace cycle that I'm starting on Saturday. That's the first time that I'm doing this in group format. That's going through weekly sessions every Saturday at the same time. And many of you here right now are from Australia. For you, it's a really inconvenient time. I understand that. I just have to do it that way for now. Okay. If there's enough people that come together from a different time zone like yours, then we can also do this at a later time. I can do it twice a day. I don't have a problem with this. So if you are interested in doing the Grace Soul Self Initiation Cycle in a group, okay, then let me know. Yeah, if we can get a group together, say, of 4 or 5 people, I'll do it. I'll put a second time, but it has to be a Saturday, because that way, it's Sunday for you. Yeah, it can work for more people. If it's during the week, there's too many people who can't do it.
I'm
So,
very keen.
sorry.
I'm very keen, and I think I know Mandy would also be quite keen as well.
Yeah, I mean, I could put a little poll into the daily sacred self. You know, like I said, if I get 4 or 5 people together, I'll do a second time. I do it on the same day, just at a different time for a different time zone. Okay, those are live sessions. Okay, so it's 1 hour a week where you literally over the course of a year go through these different layers that help you to become more self-aware, that to stay more in truth with yourself and really work through it in a group format for the same reason why Weight Watchers work and why 12-step programs work, because when we do it as a group, we all benefit from it, and it's more than just the sum of the parts. All right, everyone. Now, this was a little longer because I really needed to come to a conclusion with, you know, the needs and wants and goals and the motivation and the forces that work against us. The next workshop is going to be about mastering our body, which goes more into the physiology, self-care, self-love, and, you know, also nutrition, everything that nourishes us, yeah, that honors our body. In between, we're going to have one workshop, and you find this in the calendar, that is specifically going into the nature of these dark forces and how they work through us. Yeah, so I hope that you find this helpful, you know, that these contemplations and these lectures, that they help you, and also especially the sharing, that they help you to recognize that, first of all, you're not alone with this, and second of all, what the greater purpose of all this actually is. Yeah, the greater purpose is you evolving into the highest expression that you can be in this lifetime. Okay, and that too is already in you. Yeah. All right.
Thank you,
So
Jona.
much.
It's
Yeah.
been very good. Thank you.
Thank
Wow,
you all
thanks
for sharing.
guys. Thank you
Yeah, it
so much.
was lovely. Okay. See you again soon. Okay. Stay
Bye.
conscious. All right.
Bye.
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 Bye.